UFC 311 is happening this Saturday, January 18th, and we're going to go ahead and talk about it. It's supposed to be happening in the Inuit Dome over in LA, obviously the Clippers' new arena. But with the fires going on over there, we don't really know whether it's going to stay there, whether it's going to be moved. This is happening all this week. It's not the first time that they would have moved an event to another location, whether it's close or farther away. Apparently, the T-Mobile Arena is open and free that Saturday, so we could see a change of venues with that. If you're in LA, please stay safe. Obviously, that's not a good thing to go through, and I know a lot of people are losing their things, so hopes and prayers to everyone over there. Obviously, we're here to talk about the UFC 311 card, from early prelims to the main card, and I cannot lie, even though this is not the first event of this year in 2025. It was UFC Fight Night Dern versus Rebus 2, which was a pretty good card, don't get me wrong. But this is the first pay-per-view of the year, and it is a great one, from early prelims to main event. The whole card is stacked, in my opinion. It's probably one of the best main cards that we've seen, and two championship fights where maybe Umar and Islam both are champions on the same night. Obviously, Islam would be defending it for a fourth time. Umar would be winning it for the first time. It would still be a historic night if that happened, or if it didn't. Either way, this is going to be a top of the line, could be greatest card of the year. Obviously, still starting the year. That's how good this card is, in my opinion. To start off the early prelims, we got Tagir Ulanbekov versus Clayton Carpenter. It is at 125. The reason I have this slated as a pretty solid fight is because Clayton is undefeated. Tagir is coming from the Umar and Islam camp. This is a very, very good opening bout. Is Clayton's O about to go, or does Tagir put out the undefeated fighter? Then we got Ricky Turcos versus Bernard Sopage, all happening at bantamweight. The last one was at flyweight at 125. Now this one, I don't have it high on the priority, but Ricky is a very, very exciting fighter, so this could be sneaky good. Then we got Rinyam Nakamura versus Muin Gafarov. I hope I'm pronouncing these names. I'm trying the best that I fucking can, okay? There's a lot. These are crazy fucking names, all right? I believe Rinya is coming from the Dana White Contender Series. He is undefeated. This is at 135 again. There is a lot of exciting fighters coming up at 135. That division is really stacking. Not to mention, obviously, the main or the co-main event is for the title, which two of the best fighters in the world right now. Now, to close out the early prelims, we got Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira. And in my opinion, I know a lot of people might not like Grant Dawson. When I watch these fights, Grant Dawson's very exciting. And it's not necessarily he's going to knock everybody out. No, he goes for the finish. He actually fights. That's why I find him exciting. So this could be a good end to the early prelims. And it's at 155. To open up the prelims, we got Zach Reese versus Cedricus Dumas. And look, I'm not saying that Cedricus is the most exciting fighter. And I'm not saying Reese is either. But Dumas has some hands. This could be a very good stand-up bout. It just depends on what version of Dumas we're getting, to be honest with you. And this is at 185. So big dudes, very exciting knockout possibly. Still on the prelims, we got Jelton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak. And in my opinion, this is not very exciting. This would probably be one of the duds on the card if I'm looking at it. It's a good matchup, but it's not necessarily exciting. Like Sergey Spivak, he is a tough heavyweight veteran, but this is probably going to be another hold fest in my opinion. I hate to say it. And then the only thing I'm most interested in other than the main card is this next fight, Peyton Talbot versus Rayoni Barcelos at 135. And obviously, if you have or have not seen Peyton Talbot fight, you are in for a treat, because if you haven't, welcome. This is the man at 135 coming up. And if you have seen him fight, you already know what you're expecting. You already know the greatness and the potential of a Peyton Talbot. And that is exciting. I'm not saying that he's cherry picking anybody. He is going through the rankings and climbing up. And I hope to see him in 2025 continue to climb, get into the top 10, figure out a possible title shot. Very exciting up and coming fighter. Obviously, last 2 years he's been in the UFC and he's been, getting a couple of wins, getting some crazy knockouts. He's a very interesting dude. If you haven't listened to any of his interviews or watched his fights, you're in for a treat. Go watch his YouTube channel. Go watch any interview. Go watch his fights. Entertainment, 1,000%. Very, very entertaining. And he is himself. This is what I have to appreciate. He is who he is. He's not trying to sugarcoat XYZ. Peyton Talbot is Peyton Talbot, and that's who he is everywhere. In the octagon, on his channel, in an interview, etc. he is himself, and that we got to love and appreciate. Now, the main event for the prelims, I think, got canceled because they have not changed these. And then Johnny Walker came out and said he had some really bad injuries. So we're not going to get a knockout by Johnny Walker, whether he got knocked out or knocked somebody else out, because that's what to expect whenever he walks into the octagon. But it did get canceled versus Bogdan Guskov. I don't really know exactly who that is. I don't think I've seen him fight prior, but I did watch a couple of his highlights. Got some hands, okay? So that's why I mentioned, who knows? Maybe he gets knocked out or he knocks out Johnny Walker. And that was at 205, which obviously we got some contenders coming up here in the main card, which we will talk about. But to start, we got Kevin Holland versus Rainier de Ridder, which I said a couple of months ago, if you have been watching the channel and watching the content, this is something I've been wanting to see ever since that they have announced it. This, not even the co-main and the main event, this is what I wanted to see on this fucking card. To open it up, I don't think a lot of people are understanding how exciting that this fight is actually going to be, to open up the main card at 311 and then have a crazy main event and co-main at the end of it all. Just to start us out, Kevin Holland is always fun to watch. We already know what to expect, him and his Kung Fu style. Then we got the new kid on the block. He only has one win in the UFC. Rainier de Ridder, who is a two-time champion over one championship. This is what I'm interested in to see, is the competition of one where he was a two-time champion coming over to the UFC. He beat Gerald Meerschaert and then, or maybe somebody else, I can't recall exactly. And now he's on to Kevin Holland. How is he going to do against a Kevin Holland type of fighter? Obviously, his last bout, he did not have a good outing in that. Now he's going against a Rainier de Ridder. This is going to be a great stand-up bout. Hey, don't get me wrong. They both can go to the ground too, but I think that this is going to be a fantastic stand-up bout. And when I say this, I only say this with the utmost respect. The worst fight on the main card, and it's a banger. We get Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano, which is, look, if you haven't seen him in this last year, Renato Moicano, and his post-fight interviews or his comebacks this last year in 2024, you've been missing out on one of the biggest superstars in the lightweight division. And he's been climbing the rankings after win after win after win, and just defying a lot of people, whether it's the sports books, the fans, whomever, whatever, even his opponents, because I believe one of them dropped him and then had some sort of walk-off KO, and then he ended up coming back and beating him. But just watch his highlights this past year, Moicano. I don't think he even fought the year prior to that. Go watch it. Very exciting. This is going to be great because Beneil Dariush is on a slide right now after he got to the top 5, top 10 of 155, and he was getting close to a title shot. And then just not again, I'm not against him. It just is what it is. You go on a couple fight losing streak, you're going to lose your position in the rankings. Moicano, is he going to continue to climb, or is Beneil Dariush going to be able to stop the slide and get back to the winning ways? Or I believe he said that this could be the end of his run and he could retire, which, if you have a fighter talking like that, it's not necessarily a good sign. 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and already thinking about retirement and trying to move on from the sport, and doing that and competing against the top of in the world, like, that's very difficult to do. I don't care who you are, anything, because mindset matters a ton. And if your mindset is, you're not really committed. You're not really fully in on what you're doing. And that, in my opinion, is probably a red flag for Beneil Dariush in this one. Is what it is. If you're going to go out, go out. If you're not, hopefully you have a good run. I'm not for any fighter here. Worst fight on the card. And I do that in quotations because this is a fantastic fight that a lot of people are still sleeping on to begin with. Now, this third fight is actually probably number one contender, unless Alex lost, for the 205 belt, because Alex versus Magomed just got announced as his next opponent. There's no exact date on that, but Yuri versus Jamal Hill, this is what was supposed to happen when Yuri was champion after he beat Glover, and then he had a shoulder injury. Before that, they were supposed to fight, and then obviously you get Glover versus Jamal. Jamal wins. Then we're trying to get a Yuri versus Jamal matchup, and then Jamal tears his Achilles. So then sidelines him. Yuri comes back, faces Alex. Alex kind of has his own run. And then obviously we know where we are now. Alex beat Yuri twice. Alex beat Jamal once. This is a fucking crazy story in 205, because ever since John left, the title went all around until Alex Pereira came. And then obviously he brought consistency to the division and being able to hold the championship for a couple of defenses, because again, it was kind of bouncing around ever since John left. And now we have a guy who already beat these guys 2-1, already beat them. So we're going to see, how does this go? We finally get the matchup that should have been for a belt twice, right? It is finally here, but instead of a belt, it is for the #1 contendership to go back and face the man that beat them, which who knows, maybe they don't even face him and they have to go face Magomed because Magomed does what he wants to Alex Pereira. I'm not saying he does, but you never know the outcomes of these things. You never do. It's MMA, greatest sport in the world, biggest fucking wild card. Sean Strickland beat Israel Adesanya any given night, any given Sunday type of shit. That's how I see it. It is clearly the most important fight on this that is not a title bout, which is obvious. Now to get into the co-main event, we got Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. And this has been a fight that's been leading up to this point, because apparently when Umar and Merab were lower ranked, Merab tried to fight Umar or something similar to that, and then it didn't pan out. Merab went on this run trying to get to the title, obviously made it to the title, but then Umar was still having difficulties getting fights. Obviously, then ended up fighting Corey Sandhagen, and here we are now. But in between a lot of that, they were calling each other out and having drama online. Now we're here. Okay? Now we are here at this moment where Umar gets his title shot. Is Merab going to stop him? Is Merab's pressure, his freestyle wrestling, his ability to continue going to break an Umar Nurmagomedov? I really don't know. I don't think so, in my opinion, because I believe Umar is fucking great. Now, when he fought Corey Sandhagen, I think it proved a lot, because Corey, in my opinion, easily top 5 in the world at 135, and he is fucking amazing, great talent. And the ability to do that against a Corey Sandhagen, what Umar was able to do, showed up and showed out tremendous talent. How good he is on all positions. That Corey actually did give him a lot of trouble, but Umar was still able to not only strike, but out grapple him. And is Merab going to be able to strike with him, or is his only way to get him down, hold him down, and try to pressure him? I don't know how successful that's going to be for Merab, but I do know that Umar on the feet can outstrike a Merab, in my opinion. That's how I feel about it, because I don't think he can outstrike Corey, and Umar outstruck Corey. He did a fantastic job on the feet against a Corey Sandhagen, and someone with that talent. Now, Merab does not have that talent on the feet like Corey Sandhagen. He's got it on the ground. And Khabib himself had said that he's got better freestyle wrestling and he has better pressure than Umar. And he said that in the upcoming Countdown series in an interview. So it's for sure facts from Khabib, not me, that he said that shit. So I don't know whether Umar's going to be able to handle that, or he's going to be able to cook the fuck out of Merab. This is what makes it so exciting. The drama leading to this fight creates such anticipation for us fans that we don't know what's going to happen, because like I said earlier, every given day, any given Sunday, basically football fucking terms, the fact in which Merab can beat Umar and spoil the party for Umar and Islam and their whole team and Khabib in his father's legacy. Or is the fucking legacy going to happen? Is Merab and Islam going to both win on the same night and Khabib's just have a fucking fantastic time as a coach and running through these championships? We do not know, which is why I love the sport. We don't really have an exact contender. We have to have the division kind of clean up a little bit, get through a couple of fighters to then have a #1 contender, because Sean O'Malley hasn't done anything since that fight. Corey lost to Umar, so maybe they run it back if Umar wins, or maybe Merab gets to face somebody else for a #1 contendership for another opportunity back in the belt. It's not like he held it for so long, so him losing wouldn't get an immediate rematch, in my opinion. There are a lot of moving pieces post this fight for the bantamweight division. Now the fight we've all been waiting to talk about, the one that we're all excited for. We're all excited for this. We saw them fight 5-6 years ago, April 20th in 2019, in Arman's debut of the UFC. He was 22 years old. Islam was about 28. Obviously, two different positions where they are at that point in time of their career. Arman had mentioned that he took the fight on 3 weeks' notice and still looked that fucking good against Islam Makhachev in their first bout. Islam was on a 4-fight winning streak prior to their first fight, obviously ended up with 5. in my opinion, I watched the fight back. The first 2 rounds, or actually all 3 rounds, I would give to Islam. It was very, very close, the first 2. The third one is very much for Islam, but you could see how much trouble that he gave Islam. Arman gave Islam a ton of trouble, and Islam himself in multiple interviews stated that he was not prepared. He was not expecting this. He was not, what Arman brought to the table, he overlooked. Now, multiple times in every single interview prior for his fights with Alexander Volkanovski or Charles Oliveira or Dustin Poirier, where he goes on to defend the title, Islam, he never talked about his opponents the same way he's talking about Arman right now. He said that Arman's a true number one contender, which obvious. Islam's going to have his hands full that night on January 18th. Where he is right now in his career, he is 33 years old, could break or tie Khabib's defense record. I think it's break. But the fact in which Arman to Tsarukyan, a true number one contendership from the champion himself, this is going to be a great fight. If you're 22, you're Arman Tsarukyan, 22 at that time, able to do that to an Islam Makhachev and bring him down and take him down, give him his first takedown in the UFC, I don't know. There's a lot of potential there. He looked very good and gassed out late. Arman himself had talked about how his coaches said, hey, just strike more with him, man. Just strike. Do not try to take him down. You're going to gas out. And that's exactly what he did. He did not listen to his coaches. He continued to pressure him. He continued to try to take him down because he thought he could, and it gassed him out. It cost him the fight. Now, obviously, their first fight, 3 rounds. And at the end of the second round, you could see Arman get gassed. At the end of the third round, you could see him have a little bit of problems in terms of his energy level. And it's very interesting to see how he can manage that in this next fight. The time between their first fight and this fight is about 4 or 5, maybe even 6-year difference. I think it's 5-year difference. And he had learned a lot. He's been in the UFC ever since. He's only had 1 loss ever since, and that's Gamrot. I'm talking about Arman, not Islam. I'm sure 5 years in the sport, coming from a background you do not have, okay? Keep in mind, he got into this when he was around 17. He had mentioned getting into wrestling and all of that. Versus Islam, Khabib, all of their team, Umar, having basically been in this since they were a child, okay? There's obviously differences in the way that they go about the sport, but Arman is a true number one contender. We're going to see what Islam can do. Is Islam that much better in his rematches? We are going to find out, because not only is he going to have to go through this rematch, but he's probably going to have to go through another if he wins with Charles Oliveira. So his rematch against Volk, we saw him get a head kick KO. Can he get a KO here against Arman like he's talking about? And does he go ahead and get another rematch against a Charles Oliveira, because he talked about Bilal being a 170 and not really wanting to go up there and fight him because they're good friends, and it kind of ruined his plan of doing that ever since he won the belt. In my opinion, I would say the number one factor in all of this, in this whole fight, is how much did Islam's stand-up game grow from their first bout, because Arman thought he was able to stand with them in the first fight. Same for Arman. How much did he grow in between these fights? And then I also want to point out that they've both talked about wanting to KO each other. So this could be a very good stand-up bout and not really even see that much wrestling to begin with, because I think Arman's going to try to avoid it as much as he can so he doesn't gas out and lose as much energy as he did in their first fight. One of the major differences that, in my opinion, I saw from their first fight to this one is the growth of Islam's stand-up game. I don't think Arman understands how much better Islam is on the feet versus 5 years ago. In that scenario, it is a little scary to see how well he did in a stand-up game with such a great boxer in a Dustin Poirier in their last bout. How is Arman going to be able to combat that? Has he gotten so much better, or is Islam just gotten that much better? Because they say when you do get the belt, you are 15 to 20% better, but he has had it for a little bit now. Does that wear off over time with the interviews, the obligations as a champion, not having that time to train as much and just focus on being that hungry competitor versus the defending champion? These are all of the variables and factors that we could see that lead up to this fight. The last most important piece of this whole fight is the fact that Arman is correct when he says that all of the pressure is on Islam. Islam's been doing this since he was a child. He's got the legacy, he's got the team, he's got the coach, he's got everything to lose, including the belt. What does Arman have to lose? Arman's doing this for fun. He did this because he loves the sport. He wants to be a UFC champion. If he lost, everyone expects him to lose. So what does he lose at the end of the day? He's got everything to gain and nothing to give up, which I would 1000% agree with, which is another reason it makes Islam, Habib, Umar, all of that so much more special. Big stakes for a big fight, for a big championship. Let me know what you think of UFC 311. I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think it's going to be one of the best slobber knockers, JR, of this year. It could easily be one of the best cards of the whole year, and we just started the year. So again, let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you in the next one.